Welcome, everyone. I appreciate your time and joining our session today. Welcome to the Empowering Your Workplace, Unleashing the Power of Self-Determination. My name is Kim Eschenbach. I am one of the organizational impact coaches at Lakeland Care. And my technology and I are not friends right now. I'm really sorry about it. Go. My name is Kim Eschenbach. I'm one of the organizational impact coaches at Lakeland Care. I have been at Lakeland for about 13 years. Over the last few years, I transitioned into a role where I was able to use certifications as a Gallup certified strengths coach, as well as a mindfulness practitioner, and had the opportunity along the way to meet Todd, who's an amazing individual. And when we were talking about this year's conference, we really wanted to focus on the ability to use self-determination in the workplace and really let it shine as far as Todd's journey. He's an amazing individual. I've shared with him that I think he should write a book just because he has so many amazing stories, and his career at Target, he's been there for over 30 years. So yeah, 30 years. I don't know very many people that can say that about their career path, and just the exceptional commitment and dedication and motivation and inspiration that he has for himself and other individuals along the way. So Todd, I'm going to hand it over to you to do a quick intro.
Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. My name is Todd Neely. I have been involved in self-advocacy in Fond du Lac and the state of Wisconsin for over 30 years. In 2008, I was recognized with the Michael J. Faulkner Award by the Governor's Committee for People with Disabilities for my advocacy work. And as Kim mentioned, my other major accomplishment, I worked at the Target store in Fond du Lac for over 31 years.
Open up with an icebreaker just for you to have an opportunity to connect with the people that are at your table. We're winding down, so we're the last session of the conference. We just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of recap and connect with the people at your table to share what was the one meaningful thing that stood out to you, what was the connection point that you're going to be carrying forward. So just giving you a few moments to do that.
I'm not sure what works.
How many individuals that would like to share just a shout out on a couple of the items that are your faves from the last few days? This table is pretty chatty. Anyone want to go? The vendors. Absolutely, some empty wallets probably along the way. What did I see? What were your key takeaways from the last few days?
Just knowing that
Absolutely, and awareness, factor there, absolutely. But anything else, any takeaways from all the students, do you want to share? Yes, please. We talked about also advocacy, rather than as, up to my daughter who's 30 and, has different. I was just telling them, and we're giving the sounds of that's all. But for me, in these sessions, the difference between what I'm used to in West Virginia and what Wisconsin has to offer for people with disabilities, it's amazing to me to have the same disabilities from, it doesn't matter, if it's West Virginia, Wisconsin, my family's from Puerto Rico, we're everywhere. But the treatment is so different, the financing for the same services are so different. Crawling through holes, digging tunnels to get what should be a natural response, because we are still citizens. And I was just telling them, this is my first conference without a speaker. It's been enlightening. But I spoke previously in a lot of conferences about I have autism, and my favorite thing to hear is no, you don't. Yes, I do. I don't fit your stereotype. So I know a lot of speaking on how to not discriminate and look me in the face and say, no, you don't. I embrace it. For the first time in my life, I know what's right with me and what's wrong. That's what I tell people. But this has been very cool for me to come back to Wisconsin, see somebody I know, and I absolutely adore them, absolutely adore now, so I'm so excited. But learning the differences, I'm like, what do you mean I have to jump through this hoop? Why can't we just have that? It's in West Virginia, has such a stigma. No, man, they're good to the people. Disability or not, they're in the same level. And I never in a million years thought it would be as different from state to state as it's I appreciate that. I thank you for sharing your perspective. I appreciate that very much. So during our time together today, we're going to look at a few different session offerings, meaning an understanding of self-determination in the workplace. We're going to look at learning how to pep up your organization. PEP stands for prepare, engage, and positively impact. And that's a framework that allows you to be successful, which Todd has been for over 30 years at your workplace. And then also just really gain some inspiration from Todd and his story and the journey that he's had along the way. So we're going to start by just talking a little bit about what self-determination is. When Todd and I were preparing for today, we were really talking about how it's kind of like a compass. It's what helps guide you and helps you to navigate through the things that are important to you in life. It helps to offer direction. But we wanted to open it up to the room. This is a self-determination conference. What do individuals in the room think of self-determination and what it means to you? You start.
Self-determination for me, first of all, you have to understand that the outside world, there are barriers. But I've always looked at a barrier as a challenge. How can I work with the barrier or knock it down? I don't let a barrier stop me. You'll hear me talk a lot today about my inner drive. The biggest thing for me is if you want to see what I call the evil type come on, it's not very often. If somebody tells me that I can't do something without letting me try or talking to me about what can I do, then I feel like I'm being put in a box. And I don't like being put in a box. I want to, I learned from little on, my father told me that I could do whatever I wanted. And my parents were always very supportive. And you'll hear my story today. As I started my journey, a lot of people would look at me and say, wow, you're gonna do that? And I've never looked at my disability as any different. People have asked me, where does my inner drive come from? My inner drive came from birth. I need to let everybody know in the room that I was born 2.5 months premature. I was immediately put in an incubator, and I spent the first 6 to 6.5 weeks of my life in the hospital. So I had to fight from when I took my first breath, that I wasn't gonna go anywhere. The doctors told my parents, Todd's got too much going against him. He probably won't survive. After I hung around for a couple of weeks, the doctors then said, well, we don't know. We don't know what Todd's future holds. He could almost be in a vegetative state. If you look at me today, doctors were wrong again. So I constantly prove people wrong. And that's probably, I'm not trying to sound like it's hard for me because there's a part of me that loves to prove people wrong. I like to kind of go, yeah. I'm respectful, but I know no different than. And so as I continue to talk today, you'll constantly hear me talk about my inner drive. But my inner drive, I was basically born with it. Nobody taught me it. It was just something that was given to me. That I can do whatever I want. Set a goal and go get what you want. Don't let anyone tell you you can't. It's all up to you, but it has to come from inside you first. It's been my experience that whatever I wanted to do, if I've told people that I want to do something, there'll be people around me that'll be like, how can I help Todd get to where he wants to get? So it's very important that you'll hear me talk about it more and more as we go on today, but it has to come from inside you first. You have to have an inner drive. If you don't, you're not really going to go anywhere. But it has to come from here first.
So how about other people in the room as far as self-determination? What are words that really are key things that stick out to you? Either things that you've learned or just about yourself as an individual? Yes. Personal care work.
In the past, personal care workers could only do personal care when they were inside the 4 walls of your home. And with self-determination, that is completely changed. So you get out, you can go on vacations, you can have experiences, you can go on adventures. And that was something that's brand new. It's beautiful.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
I was just going to simply say that for me, with self-determination, I remind people around me what's right for you is not always right for me. And sometimes I have to be unorthodox for my best interest because I don't let people step on me. I can step harder. I prefer not to because that stigma comes out. Oh, she's not autism. And so I have to remind people around me sometimes that I have to do what's right for me. You may not agree with it. It's only going to harm you if you take it personal. So.
Well said. Anyone else? Okay. So what we'd like to do is transition into the part that is specific to prepping up your workplace. If you look at something with your folder, on the left-hand side, there's a notes page. And the notes page is for you to obviously take notes. There's a wondering section, an ideas section, if you have, thoughts that come through during, our time together, that you think, oh my gosh, I have to remember to pick up milk on the way home, or make a hair appointment for my child, you put it on the to-do list on the left-hand side of the piece of paper. That'll help you be able to set that aside, so then you can come back and focus and be present during our time together. So during our PEP work, we were talking about PEP being something that has been instrumental in preparing Todd for the workplace. Now, with 31 years under his belt, we're going back in time when we talk about preparing and how, like, where your roots are as far as your job search and things like that. And then we're gonna carry that forward over the course of his career. But just so you know, we have to go back quite a ways before we can actually get to present day. So Todd, when you're looking at the concept of prepare, setting clear and achievable goals is something that was really important to you. Can you tell everyone a little bit more about that?
As Kim said, we have to go back. And I don't want to go back too far, but I want everyone in the room to understand, when I graduated high school, I graduated in 1982. This is before 88. The world was a different place. A lot of opportunities weren't available to me. So as I went into my senior year, I had to start to think about, what does Todd's future look like? What do I want to do? I quickly decided that, I hope I don't offend anyone in the room, but for me, a high school diploma was not going to be enough. So I then had to decide, what kind of secondary education did I want? Would I choose tech school, a 2-year school, or a 4-year school? So once again, I quickly decided, with the support of my family and some people in my high school, that a 4-year college was what Todd wanted to go for. Once again, I had to put the brakes on just a little bit, because not all 4-year colleges were accessible. So I had to kind of go back to my high school guidance counselor, who was huge, instrumental in trying to find my search. Where would I go to school? Well, maybe not quickly, but with some hard work, my guidance counselor came to me and said, Todd, I found a 4-year school. It's UW Whitewater. I want you to know that right now, it is currently ranked number 3 in the entire nation for the services it provides for disabled students that want to go to college. So we figured out, when was there going to be a high school day when I could go with my parents and tour the campus. When I got there and I walked around the campus, it was a whole new world for me. I'd go up to a building, hit a button, the door would open. I never experienced stuff like that before. I was only there about a half hour, and I looked at my parents and I said, this is where I want to go. This is my home for my secondary education. So I went back, got all the materials while I was there, and applied to go to UW Whitewater. In January of that year, my senior year, I got a letter. I sent in my stuff, and I had to wait quite a while. But I got my acceptance letter to UW Whitewater for the fall semester after I completed my senior year. My journey at Whitewater was not always smooth, but in December of 1990, I graduated UW Whitewater with a degree in speech communications with an emphasis in public relations and a minor in personal management. My next step And my journey was, okay, I'm armed with my degree. So I thought my job path may not be simple, but I thought it was gonna be fairly easy. Mm-mm. My journey took well over a year, and after a year, I had a stack in my house of some 60 rejection letters. I either filled out applications, sometimes I got an interview, most of the time I did not. But I had a stack of 60 rejection letters. And this is probably the first time in my life where my self-esteem and my self-confidence took a major hit. I started to think to myself, why did I bother going to school? Why did I arm myself with this degree if nobody will give me a chance to use it? Well, one night, my dad had to come over and kind of pump me up again, because I was kind of deflated. And it was probably one of the first times in my life where my dad really said, my son he's hurting. So my dad came over to my apartment. We had a long talk. He said, I know this last year hasn't been easy for you. You've been frustrated, angry, that nobody will give you a chance. And I can't tell you when, Todd, I can't tell you where. But if you keep fighting as you always have, somewhere, somebody will give you a chance. But you just have to keep at it. He said, I know it's hard when you look at that stack of 60 rejection letters, because I didn't throw them away. I kept them. And I'll explain in just a few minutes as to why. So the next part of my story is that I was listening to a Brewery game in my room one night, and during a commercial break, there was a commercial or an advertisement that a new retail store, Target, was coming to Fond du Lac. I thought, here's my chance. The playing field will now be level for Todd. They're gonna have to hire well over 100 people to help in their store. So I felt now the playing field was level. Yes, I was gonna have to compete with a lot of people for a job, but I thought with well over 100 jobs, I thought there might be a chance. There might be a spot for me. So I called my dad right away after I wrote down all the information. Now, not too many people would do this, but the very next day, I went to the Fond du Lac Public Library and I started to research Target. I thought, there's not going to be anybody that's going to go in for an interview that's going to know more about Target than me. And then as I began to do my research for Target, I started to think, where might I fit? What might I be able to do for them? Armed with my degree. Now, you've heard some people talk about their employment journey. Now, I didn't have just one interview for Target, not 2 interviews for Target. I had to go through 3. So after I finished, and each time I went through the interview process, at the end of my interview, I said, all you have to do is open the door this much. And I promise I will blow the door the rest of the way open. I just need to open this much. So that's how I left the interview. And after I finished my 3rd interview, they told me it would be about a week before I would hear an answer. So it was the 4th morning. And I was starting to sweat a little bit. I'm like, a week, my week it's ticking down. But on the 4th morning, my phone rang at 8:30 in the morning with my job. So I called my dad right away. And I said, my 18-month journey is over. I finally can say that I'm gainfully employed. After that phone call, I started with Target 2 weeks later. Now, when I first started at Target, the store wasn't done yet. So we went out to our local technical college. And I started to learn about Target and its culture. Once the store was ready, and it wasn't too long, it was probably about a week and a half. Then we went out to the store. So the first 5.5 weeks that I was employed at Target, it was helping get the store ready to open. Once the store was open, I was told that I would be part of our clerical staff. So the next part of my interesting story is the very first day that the store was open, my manager came to me halfway through my shift. And she said, Todd, I need to see you in my office a half hour before the end of your shift. And I'm thinking, this can't be good. First full day, people in our store shopping. I thought, this isn't good. What did Todd do? So with a half hour to go in my shift, I kind of went slinking down to the office in my chair, knocked on her door because it was open. And she said, don't be afraid. Come into my office. And as I approached her desk, she looked up at me and said, Todd, I made a huge mistake. I can't have you in an office. I need you out on our sales floor. I need you interacting with our guests. At Target, we refer to our shoppers as guests. We treat our customers or our guests just as we would a visitor in our home. That's the mindset that we have. So I said, okay, I haven't had any training to be put out on the floor. And you'll hear later as I continue today, in retail, you have to be very quick to change. You don't have a lot of time to adapt. You kind of have to do stuff on the fly. And you learn as you go. I don't like to make a lot of mistakes, but over 31 years, have I made some? Yeah. So she said, I'm going to partner you up with somebody so that you learn what is expected of you and what I want you to do. Currently, after 31 years later, I am now out on the sales floor and I work in a specific department. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a huge sports fan. So out at Target, I work in our what we call our fan central department. It's where we have all of our Packer, Badger, Brewer, and Buck stuff. And you'll hear me talk more and more today. At Target, they try to figure out where do you best fit based on what you like, based on what you can do, how can you help Target? A lot of people didn't like to go to that department. I can't tell you why. And as they started to explore where could we put Tom, that was somebody said, why don't we put him over there? Because nobody likes to be over there. That's stuff that Todd likes. We'll have him work in there. And so my job in that department is to make sure everything is hung right. All the other merchandise that's on a shelf has to look perfect. I joke with people, if you walk through, I call it my department, it's really not, but I call it my department. If you walk through my department, it probably looks better than some people's houses. Just because of the way I've been trained, how stuff has to look. And you'll hear me talk more later about, I take great pride in my work. I want Target to always, even though I've been there for 31 years, each day I go in there, I act like I've never worked there. I want to always impress my bosses, my supervisors. When I leave at the end of the day, I want them to feel like Todd did a good job today. You know, we were glad he was here. He did a lot of good work for us.
Thank you for that. So as far as the preparing piece, I mean, you've covered so many different things as far as the research component. And then overcoming obstacles and barriers and just continuing to have perseverance. And then leveraging your strengths and what you're good at and what the opportunities were as far as the opportunity at Target too. They saw your strengths and being able to be out in the floor and meeting with the guests. And I just think it's really great that you have that connection point and you're really where you're thriving, which is awesome. So when we look at the next thing, it's about engaging, and that engagement piece is really looking at relationships. So can you talk a little bit about how you have been able to build effective relationships and communication, having open communication with your management team?
First of all, people need to know that in our Fond du Lac store, we're what we call a training bed store. So a lot of our managers that have come into our store don't have managerial experience. This is their first stop. Typically, a manager, when we get a manager, they're there maybe between 1 and 2 years. So I can't tell you over 31 years exactly how many different managers I've had, but it has been numerous. And I've had different experiences with managers that have come. Some people have had experience working with disabled people, some have not. So when I get a new manager, I always seek them out. Because they may have been there for a few days before I get in there to work. And I'll find out that we have a new manager and I'll say, are they working today? And I always go up to them and introduce myself. Typically, when we get a new manager, they know about town. They know that I've worked there for as long as I have. I forgot to mention earlier that as of right now, I am the last of the original people that was hired. So nobody's been there longer than me. So it's important for me, when I need a new manager, I don't make any judgments because I don't want that manager to make any judgments about me. But it's a feeling out process. I need to kind of know, have you had experience? I don't flat out ask them. I just I kind of know how to figure that out. If I know they haven't had any experience working with a disabled person, I always tell them I'm an open book. If you have a question, don't be afraid to ask. My dad taught me from little on, the dumbest question is a question that's not asked. So to help my managers or my fellow coworkers, I always tell them any question you have about me, my disability, ask. I have nothing to hide. As I said a couple of minutes ago, I'm an open book. And so I try to help people educate them. And I have a couple of my group best friends right now that are either former coworkers. And when I work, the work culture has changed a little bit. I always give 110% when I go to work. And I look at some people and they just do what they're supposed to do. And I've had people come up and ask me, why do you work so hard? And I tell them, I know no different. I was taught that. My father grew up on a farm. So anyone that's lived on a farm, there's always work to do. So that was ingrained in me right from the start. And being that I am disabled, I don't want to slack. I need to work hard just to keep up with somebody next to me. So that I'm working just as hard. If somebody's working super hard, I need to work just as hard so that I can show Target that they didn't make a mistake in hiring me. That's always, some people say, come on, after 31 years, but that's always in the back of my mind. I never want Target to regret the day that they gave me an opportunity to work for them. And I feel I owe that to them because they gave me the opportunity.
One of the things that I thought was powerful when we were getting to know each other and you were talking about the engagement component at work is that as you're open and just sharing that you're an open book, it's offered the opportunity for people to feel like they can be that way toward you too. And so you've been able to build some really meaningful relationships because you're just showing up as your authentic self and people accept you for who you are and you're doing the same for your coworkers and it just really builds a great community of people. So the last element that's part of PEP is positively impacting your workplace. And the thing that I wanted to really talk about here is the teaming piece that you have in place, as well as the inclusion component. So if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about the recent remodel at Target and how instrumental you were as far as that process, that would be great.
Earlier this year, Target went through a major remodel project. It probably took somewhere between 5 and 6 months to complete. Once the remodel was completed, there were a couple of doors that were installed in Target that were too heavy for Todd to open either with my arm or my chair. I went to management, they saw that there was a problem, but now how do we work with that? What do we do? Because when I went in to talk to my HR, I thought this was probably one of the first biggest hurdles in my time of being at Target. And I thought, oof, I hope they don't regret the day that they hired Todd because now we've got a door that can't open. So I went to talk to my HR. She knew that there was a problem and she said, Todd, can you show me how you can't open it? I said, sure. Let's take we'll take a walk. So I showed her with my arm that I couldn't open it, and then I tried to push it open with my foot pedals / feet. And she's like, stop. We can't have you trying to open a door with your feet. You might break a foot, break an ankle, and then we've got bigger problems. So she said, let me go back, and now we've got some work to do. But it's nothing that you need to worry about, Todd. This is all on us. We need to figure out a way for you to open. There were 2 doors. So long story short, Target installed 2 electric doors. People ask me, how do I open and close them? If people know the little remotes that you have for your car, to start your car, unlock it, the remote that I now use is no bigger than that. That's all. The bigger it is, I hit a button, the 2 doors open, I go through. Well, the first door I go through is to get into where we store our personal items, hang our coats up. And then the second door leads to our break room. During this whole process, Todd never took a break until these doors were fixed. Because I couldn't get into the break room, I wasn't gonna stop somebody and say, hey, can you open that door for me? I should have. When Target found out that I went about 4 months without taking my daily break, they were not happy. They're like, why didn't you go get somebody to? And I said, I got too much work to do. You know, I can't afford to take a break, otherwise I don't get my work done. But as my manager sat down and talked to me and said, now that those doors are fixed, Todd, you need to go take your break. But yeah, some of my coworkers would laugh about that. They're like, yeah, we never see Todd take a break because he couldn't open the door. So, and he didn't want to act, you know, he didn't want to bother us. Management to an extent understood my viewpoint, but they were like, you just need to ask Todd, you know, I mean, you're never a bother, but I can't thank Target enough because the remodel was complete. It was completed. This was after it was done, after the construction company left. Target signed off, you know, and then oops, we have this problem. How do we fix it? And once again, my management team never said, you know, this is your problem. They were like, no, this is our problem. We should have addressed this before it was completed, but nobody knew. And I can't tell you exactly what kind of doors they are. I have a feeling they're heavier duty. We might get an outside threat and we need somewhere to go protect ourselves. But I can't thank Target enough for what they did for me. I thank them every day. And I have to let this room know they made six remotes. The first day, my manager came to me and said, Todd, we need to give you a remote. Come with me. And I said, now, do I turn this in when I'm done? I said, no. Go see our security staff and they will put a security tag on it. You keep this with you all the time. This is yours. Just don't lose it. And so I'm always checking my, I had a couple of friends in the store a couple weeks ago and I was feeling for my pocket and they're like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm just making sure that something's in my pocket that needs to be there. So they let me take it home. I have it. The second week I had it though, I forgot it. I wasn't used to bringing it to work yet. And I was in a hurry and out the door I went. I realized that halfway, as my ride was bringing me halfway out to Target. And I thought, oops, this looks real good for Todd. So I walked in and I talked to my management staff and they said, well, the managers that were working that particular weekend said, we don't know where the extra remotes are. So why don't we'll just open the other door that we opened for you before we got these doors fixed. So that whole day I felt so bad I couldn't apologize enough. And my coworkers were like, I would have forgot if I wasn't used to bringing something to work. But now every time I leave my house since that Saturday, I'm always making sure that remote is in my pocket.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that one of the things you wanted to talk about today too was just navigating the time during COVID and how your leadership team was wanting to make sure that your safety was the utmost focus, as well as giving you the opportunity on if you wanted to work or not, and how you navigated through that from an inclusive perspective too. So if you wanted to touch on that, here you go.
During COVID, my manager at the time was very, very concerned about me being that I was disabled. He was worried about my condition as to whether that might be a factor putting me at risk of getting COVID. I went to my manager right away and I said, nah, I said, I'm not staying home. I don't have to take a leave of absence. I'm here because I want to be, and I have a responsibility to target. And some people, when I say this, they look at me like, are you nuts? But I said, if I get COVID, I'm no more at risk than my coworker. Not that I want to get COVID, and I may touch on that later, but I really wasn't afraid. I went through all the precautions that we went through at the store. I wore a mask. Well, for a while, we had to wear gloves when we worked, and to work with clothing with rubber gloves. Not a fun time. No, and so I told my boss and my supervisors, I said, unless I get sick, I will leave. You don't have to worry. And I can't tell you how many times it took a couple of weeks for them to say, all right, we can quit asking Todd. He's here for the long haul. I didn't know how long COVID was gonna last, but because it lasted a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but I always, and to this day, if you would see me go to work, I still wear a mask. Just because I don't know with my disability if I'm any more at risk than anyone else, but when I'm at work, I still wear a mask. Just to protect myself, just to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to not get sick.
The framework for PEP, it is being flowed so nicely with Todd's story and being able to share all the different elements as far as preparing, engaging, and positively impacting the workplace. So thank you for kind of walking through that process. While Todd and I were actually preparing for today, I gathered together quite a few Todd-isms. So the second sheet that's in your folder is just a collection of those. And I want to give Todd an opportunity to speak to each of those. The first one is believing in your potential. So would you be able to speak to that?
From little on, my parents always taught me to always try my best. That was kind of ingrained in me. I can't say from an infant, but fairly young. I've never, anyone that's spent enough time with me, I never used my disability as a crutch or as an excuse. This is the way I am. I have to work with it. So I always want to reach my potential. I always want to do my very best. As I spoke earlier, if I have a goal, if I have something that I really, really want, you better stay out of my way, because I am not going to let anyone stop me from what I want to achieve. And that comes from my inner, as I spoke about earlier, it comes from my inner drive. I want to do whatever I can do. It's important to me to always do my very best. And anyone that's worked with me can tell you, I've had some people that they've had to learn just because I'm in a wheelchair. I don't use that as an excuse. I do my job the way anyone else would do their job. Some people are a little amazed at what I can do, but I know no different. As I say, my parents taught me not to not use my disability as a crutch. And if I ever tried to when I was young, my dad let me know. There's no excuse, you know, you could try to skate by, but I know what you can do and you can't do, Todd. And I'm not gonna let you, you know, I'm always going to. And my parents, at times, my dad could be very, very hard on me. I mean, he pushed me, but I can't thank him enough because it's the person that I am now. But there weren't too many times when I tried to skate by, but if anyone ever told you they didn't, at some point in their life, you could look at them and say, no, there's been a point in your life where you tried to take the easy way out. But it's happened to me a couple of times, but not very often. I always expect the very best out of myself. And my care team, and I'll talk about them a little later, they can tell you that I do not like to use my disability as a crutch. And if they help me with something, I'm always like, we joke a little bit, I'll talk about it later. But with my care staff, they are tempted to put a sorry jar out on my counter in my kitchen. Because I'm always, if somebody has to constantly do something for me, I'm always saying, I'm sorry that I can't do it myself. And they're like, that's why we're here. We're here to make your life, you know, better, Todd. That's what we do. But I always try to do as much as I can for myself. That's always been important for me, and it's always been important for me to maximize my absolute ability to the max.
The next one is openness fosters understanding. So you chatted a little bit about this at the beginning as far as talking with your managers and whatnot, but I'll give you the opportunity to elaborate a little here.
I'm always, as I said earlier, with my management staff and my coworkers. Now, I've worked with some coworkers, they see my chair coming and they want to turn the other way. They would rather not deal with, or they're afraid. And so when I see somebody do that, I intentionally go up to them and I'll be like, do you have a question? Because as I said earlier, I was taught the dumbest question is the question that you don't ask. If you want to know something about me or want to know about my disability, I'm an open book. And as I get them to open up a little bit, I call it loosen up a little bit. There's been some coworkers of mine, we have developed a great working relationship once they are able to lower their guard a little bit and not be afraid. Because as with my managers, I've had coworkers that have had no experience being around a disabled person day in and day out. Be it work, be it school, be it wherever, they haven't had a lot of contact. And so they've been a little bit afraid or don't want to come up to me. And not that I chase after them, that's not what I'm saying. But I try to go up to them at some point and say, you don't have to be afraid to ask me a question. And so a lot of my coworkers that may have started out that way, it's a different relationship now. Once they see what kind of worker I am, that has a lot to do with how I've changed some attitudes with what I call my able-bodied coworkers, I don't like the word normal, because to me, I'm just as normal as anybody else. So, it's just, it's a give and a take. Both with my managers and my coworkers.
The next Toddism is being adaptable is key. Can you touch a little bit on that?
Over my 31 years at Target, I've had many different roles at the store. As I said, originally, I was supposed to be hired as clerical staff. We all saw how long that lasted. That lasted one day. As retail is always, I mentioned earlier, retail, there are always changes. I didn't mention when COVID hit, that really impacted the store. Not as many people came into the store, so Target itself had to adapt. We had what we now call, and most businesses now have that. We have two options. We have ship from store, where you can go online, order it, and the merchandise is shipped right to your house. Or we have part of our team members will go with shopping carts, pick up the merchandise, bag it up. And then we have an area now at the front of the store, person pulls in the parking lot. We have designated parking spots, and people will run the merchandise out to your car. You don't have to even get out of your car. We'll help you load up the car. And there's one day where they did help me have, not real heavy stuff, obviously, but there was one day when we were short staffed doing that, and they needed some help for a couple hours. They were like, "Hey, Todd, would you mind helping run some small stuff out to some people's cars?" And I said, "Sure." And actually, one family that I knew pulled into the spot, and I happened to run out with their two bags, started rolling up to their car, and they're like, "Look who's bringing our stuff." So I have to, in Target, you have to always be willing to adapt. And over my 31 years, I've had many different job roles. As I say, I started out in clerical, then I went to the sales floor. We had door greeters for a while. That job went away, and they had to figure out, well, where do we go with that next? For many, many years, some people may know this if you've shopped in our store. I used to work back in our fitting room. And I used to watch the fitting room plus answer the phone. I did that probably for over 10 years. Then that job went away, and they were like, "Well, where do we go with Todd next?" Well, then back out to the sales floor I went, because I had experience. And then that's when I went to our band center.
Advocacy leads to change is the next one. And what I love about where you work is that there's always new management, and you have the ability to mold and shape and inspire the change that individuals can see in the world and be that change in the world. So can you speak a little bit about that?
As I say, I've had many different managers. Some managers have wanted to push Todd to see how much can Todd do. I've had managers that, we've talked about this at the conference a little bit. I've had some managers that have pushed me outside Todd's comfort zone, especially when I'm being taught something new. I'm always afraid of messing up. You know, that's always it's always in the back of my mind. Don't mess up, don't mess up. You can do this. But as I'm learning something new, and I've had some managers that have had to come to me and say, "It's okay to make a mistake. You know, as long as it's not a huge monumental mistake." They said, "You're human and you're learning something new, so it's okay." I mean, you don't have to, anyone that's known me long enough, when I make a mistake, I tend to beat myself up a little bit. Because I don't like to make mistakes. I expect somewhat of a, I'm somewhat of, if people have been around me long enough, they know I'm somewhat of a perfectionist. I don't like mistakes, and I have a hard time when I make a mistake to just let it go. So it's been, at times, it's been difficult. My management staff will have to come to me and say, hey, it's okay. You know, you're doing good, don't worry about it, just, and my dad always taught me, it's okay to make a mistake. Learn from it, but just don't make it again. You know, make it once, that's okay. Learn from it, how can I not get myself, maybe it's a situation I got myself into, how can I avoid making that same mistake again? And not that I'm perfect, but I typically do not make the same mistake more than once or twice.
Being resilient is a strength. I think that when we were talking initially and you were telling me about 66, is it right, 66?
60.
Yeah, that you, job interviews and positions that you were turned down for. I just think of your persistence and resilience there. And it's just a very inspiring piece of your story. So thank you for sharing that. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to just speak to just being a resilient human being.
As we talked about earlier, anyone that would get 60 rejection letters, I don't know how you could not start to question yourself. But I've always kind of dusted myself off, picked myself up, sometimes with a little help. But and in retail, I've had to be somewhat resilient because with change comes having to learn something new, and I have to adapt and be resilient to my ever-changing world around me, not just at work, but anywhere else. But today we're talking about my work. But I have to be somewhat resilient if I want to survive at Target. It's not always been easy, especially when certain positions have gone away that I've been very successful at. I'm like, okay, where am I gonna go next? And I have to quit as quickly as I can, learn what is expected of me, and try not to take too long, because I don't want people to sit there and say, well, how long is it gonna take to learn something? But I'm usually pretty quick, and I've impressed some of my coworkers how quickly I've caught on to stuff that I needed to. And probably one of the hardest things that I had to do at work, the first time I didn't have an electric chair when I first got hired at Target, I had a scooter. Well, we quickly realized that my scooter was too big and I had to get a regular power chair. Well, it took me a little bit to learn how to use my power chair. And this is probably, people will start to laugh. It's the only time that I got a written warning from my boss. I was driving my chair too fast. I needed to slow down. There are people in our store time, you don't want to be going around the corner and picking somebody off. But just as a side note, you laugh about me maybe picking somebody off. I can't tell you over 31 years how many times I've been hit by a car. coming around a corner, especially in our world now, where people have cell phones and lists are on cell phones or apps are on cell phones when they're looking for merchandise in the store. Just a week ago, when I was at work on Saturday, I got hit twice by the same person. In the span of about 10 minutes. They were coming around a corner, looking at their phone, and not that it made a huge noise, but people knew that. And well, the second time my manager was right there, and he immediately came running up to me. He's like, "Todd, are you all right?" Because she hit me broadside. She hit the side of my chair. And I said, "Well, I'm okay. Nothing fell off my chair. We're good. It'll be okay." But yeah, that was the same guess in a span of probably 10 to 15 minutes. I'm like, I watched where she went, what part of the store she was going to. I went the other way. I went the other way. I just thought, I'm gonna wait till you're done. I didn't mean to say I went and hit, but I had some work to do, but I just worked in the other end of the store. I'm like, I'm staying away. Stay away.
Another one is support networks matter. And I know you've talked a lot about work, but I want you to be able to have a shout out here as far as the other people that are in your life.
I have 3 big pieces of my support network. I lost what I call my rock and my biggest supporter 5 years ago in September. I lost my dad. And so my dad was always there for me. And so as we knew the end was coming for my father, I have an older brother, Greg. And Greg went to go see my dad and said, "Don't worry about Todd. I got him. I will make sure that he's safe, taken care of, and that his needs are being met." My other support network is Lakeland Care Inc. I have a case manager, Carla, and a nurse, Cassie, who makes sure that I'm getting the services and supports that I need. Third, I have a care agency that takes care of me. It's Community Living Connections, or for short, we like to say CLC. I actually have one of my support staff here today. Her name is Shay. Shay's been with me the last 3 days, so I was able to come to the conference to be here. This was my first conference, and I plan to try to be back many times in the future.
Challenges or opportunities is the next one. We touched on this a little bit. Oh my gosh, with all of the things that you've gone through in life, especially just the recent thing that you shared about the loss of your dad.
Any challenge that I'm given, I don't give up. It's always an opportunity for me to grow. I may not like what I'm going through at the time, but if I look back at it, it's made me a better person, and it's made me who I am today. Some people might look at a challenge as, "Oh, I can't do that." And as I touched on earlier, I don't like when people say that Todd can't do something without letting Todd try. My dad taught me from little on, if you don't try, you don't really know what your potential could be. It's okay to fail if you try something. It's okay. But it's the not trying or not pushing yourself once again, talk about the inner drive in myself. I know no different. I like to try new things. I might be a little scared at first, because it gets me, sometimes it might get me outside my comfort zone. But I've expanded my comfort zone now if I try something that I haven't done before, and I'm successful.
And the last one is self-determination is a journey. You have had quite a journey in your life. And just feel honored that we've been able to be part of learning about you today and wanted to give you an opportunity to just talk about that incident as well.
In closing, all I can tell you is that believe in yourself. Believe in your ability. You can do whatever you want, but it has to come from in here. If people see that you want to do something, there'll be people around you that will help you get to where you want to get or achieve a goal. But if you don't let people know what you want, or you yourself don't push yourself to do what you want, you won't go anywhere.
It's been an absolute honor getting to know you over these last several years in our time together as far as preparing for today. So thank you so much, Todd, for letting me be part of this connection that we built. We wanted to open up the floor to any questions, a Q&A time frame. If anyone wants to ask any questions, has any burning questions for Todd, he's on the hot seat here, so feel free to ask. Katie, what are your plans for retirement?
As you read in my, if any of you had a chance to read my little bio in the booklet, last year, Target honored me for my 30 years of service. I got my, I wouldn't call it 15 minutes of time. It was maybe like 10 minutes, but they pulled some of my coworkers off of the sales floor and took us to our break room, and Target honored me with a 30-year plaque. Plus they had a big, if anyone knows what a sheet cake is, they had a sheet cake for Todd honoring my 30 years of service, and just gave me a chance to say thank you. And my friends, and particularly my brother, when that 30-year anniversary hit, said, Todd, how long do you want to work? And I always joke with people, as long as I'm upright and vertical, Todd will work. Because I know no different. And just to go back for a second, again, it goes to the way I was raised. My father, who died at age 82, the last job he retired from was in July of, he died in September, and the last job he stepped away from was just like 2 to 3 months before he passed away. So I know no different. I will work. It may not be at Target necessarily, but I am always going to be doing something as long as I'm upright and vertical and, you know, can contribute. I know no different. As far as my Target career, I would like, if I looked a couple of years ago, official retirement age for me now is 67. They upped it. So I've got a ways to go. I've got about 7 years to go before I hit official retirement age. But as I've thought, I would like to at least hit my 40-year anniversary. Then I might be ready to step away. We'll have to see. I just don't, I can't honestly say right now, but in the back of my mind, 40 years, I would like to at least hit 40 years. before I step away. But if I'm still at it, I'd be about 69. If I'm still running around and have lots of energy, I may continue to work at Target. I just, I'm not sure. But right now, I would like to at least hit my 4-year anniversary if I can.
Any other questions? Anything that you'd like to ask Tad? Yes. Yes.
Are you planning on doing any other public speaking? Because you're very, very dynamic with your story. And I think you'd be a role model for a lot of people that are out there. Look what we can do.
Yeah.
No one has asked me, but I'm always open to new things. Who knows? I see there's a couple people from Lakeland here. My phone might be ringing a little quicker than I think. I don't know. We'll see if, well, but no, but I'm open to any, I've not been asked. This is the first time somebody really came to me and said, hey, Todd, can you tell us your story? But I'm always open to new opportunities, new ideas. So we'll see down the road if I'm asked to do any more public stuff like this. I would say no. I mean, I'm always it was fun. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. Yes. Oh, you might want to retire earlier. Yes.
Not a question, but I just want to say that I'm just blown away by the stack of 60 projections. It's overwhelming. I mean, I've started to do this, maybe employment with my disability and, that 60 is.
It wasn't easy, and I forgot to mention this, the day that I got the phone call saying that I was hired, my parents had a cook-up. My dad was like, this took 18 months, we have to celebrate this accomplishment. And so after my dad rolled out, my dad said, well, before I left my house to go to my parents, my dad said, bring your 60 rejection letters, bring them with you. And after our dinner was done, my dad had kept the grill fire going, and he said, now, go get your 60 letters, Todd. And so we went in the backyard and I dropped all 60 letters into the grill and watched them. And my dad did that to say, these are 60 people that didn't believe in you, Todd, didn't give you a chance. Target has given you a chance now. And my dad and I, before I started work, we had long discussions about what hard work was. Because he wanted me to understand I was given this opportunity. I hate to put words in my dad's mouth, but basically he was telling me, don't blow this. Because this is your shot, this is your shot to show a major corporation what you can do. And so that with that conversation, plus what I've been taught since I was young, I know you guys probably quit, are tired of hearing me say this phrase, but I know no different. I need to work hard. I looked at my dad. If my dad lived almost 82 years and only spent like 3 months in total retirement, then I had better not slack off, and that's why I say, I know no different. I'm always, sometimes my care staff will give me a hard time, like, Todd, don't slow down, maybe take a breath, you know. And I should tell you, here, I joke with, Katie, and I joke with Kim. The first session I went to during the first break, I was asked, let's see, it's Jenny. Jenny came up to me during the break and had an application for the partners in policy making. She's like, Todd, I need you. Would you please consider this? So I went Monday night after dinner and I found Jenny's table and we filled it out. So I'm in, partners in policy making. I think our first meeting is maybe in 2.5 weeks. And Jenny has told me that I can do that one virtually because it's too quick for me to get down to Madison. But just as an aside, this was my first conference and the first session I went to, I'm already having somebody come up to me and say, I need you. And I had never been here before. She only met me or saw me just for that hour and a half. And so I obviously made some kind of impression right off the bat. So I'm looking forward to that. It's a new adventure. Am I a little nervous? Maybe just a little, because I've never really talked to our lawmakers. We've got a couple minutes, so I have one just aside. As I should let everyone know, I'm on the Lakeland Board of Directors here for Lakeland. I've been a member of Family Care since the very, very beginning. I was one of the first 200 people in Fond du Lac County to go from the old county system into Family Care. I got a phone call saying, would you do it? And I'm like, sure, throw me in. I'll be, I don't need to say a guinea pig, but we're gonna learn some bumps along the road. As you read in my bio too, I'll just highlight, I was the first one in Fond du Lac County. I helped develop the SDS program. I was the first one to go through it. So I've done a lot and I'm ready for more. So we'll see how the partners in policy making and how that goes. But as when Fond du Lac County was in the pilot, one of 5 pilots, just as an aside, because not many people can say this, the governor at that time, Tommy Thompson, wanted to stop by all pilot counties just to see how things were going. And I was asked if I would meet Governor Thompson. So it was just me and him in a room all by ourselves. And he wanted to know how, and this was probably maybe 6 months in, I'm thinking, he wanted to know how Family Care was working for Todd Nealon. And I said, I'm just a regular person and I'm sitting across the table from the highest person in the state. And you want to know how things are going for me? I'm like, so I was extremely honored and I told him, and when we started our discussion, he told me, Todd, I need you to be honest. I need you to let me know if something's not working, tell me it doesn't work. I don't care. It doesn't matter if I'm the governor or not. It's just you and me right now. So I need to know what's working, what's not working. So we spent probably about 10 minutes. And I left there thinking, holy cow. How many people can say that they got 10 minutes with the governor? So as I enter this new chapter of partners in policy making, we'll see how much time, how many state legislative people I need. down the road and how much time I get to spend with them and how much they want to talk to me. But I just thought I would add that, just because this is my first conference and all of a sudden a new door has opened for me. And I didn't expect it. I should tell you, I'm very good friends with Ginger Buke, who's sitting here over in the corner. And Ginger's been after me for several years, to try the partners in policymaking, but I've always kind of told her that I'm too busy. Either with work or, and at that time I had some other, what? Yeah, so we'll see how that new adventure goes. I'm excited. Would I say I'm nervous? Not too bad. I'm ready to tackle a new challenge. I'm ready for it, so we'll see how that goes. But to answer your earlier question, yeah, I would, if somebody wants me to do another public speaking engagement about what I talked about today, I'm always open to that. That's not a problem.
Thank you for your time today, Todd.
Of course, the food working at, you've been working at Target for over 31 years. Have you ever taken a vacation?
I kind of joked with Shay about this. This is one of the first adventures I've taken without a family member or maybe a close friend. So yeah, if an opportunity would present itself for me to go somewhere and I can get the support staff to go with me, yeah. But most of my vacations that I've had in my life have been either with family or very, very, very close friends that don't look at my disability as a pain. Because I have some extra stuff that I need and it's not always easy. But yeah, no, most of my vacations have been with family, so this was the first opportunity I had to, and I'm probably gonna make her blush, but I can't thank Shay enough for coming with me so that I could take this opportunity, this new adventure. So I just wanted to publicly thank her. Does anybody have anything else?
Thank you all for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.